Picture a machine so massive it had to be shipped in 8 separate truckloads, and another so powerful it was banned before it ever moved a single ton of dirt. Between 1960 and 2000, engineers at Caterpillar, Komatsu and beyond built bulldozers that didn't just push earth, they redefined what was mechanically possible. Some were too complex, too heavy, too expensive, too far ahead of their era. These are the 10 dozers that were simply too powerful for their time. Number 1. Euclid TC-12. To understand the 1960s, you have to start with the machine that still reigned over them. The Euclid TC-12 was introduced back in 1955, but as the new decade opened, it was still the largest and most powerful crawler tractor on Earth, and it stayed the king of the hill until Allis-Chalmers finally dethroned it years later. What made the TC-12 so radical wasn't just its size. It was the idea behind it. Instead of one engine, Euclid bolted in 2 GM 671 Detroit diesels, the legendary Screamin' Jimmy two-strokes, and gave each engine its own transmission driving its own track. That split power layout meant the operator could throttle the tracks independently, letting a 35-ton machine pivot almost in place. For the mid-1950s and early 60s, that maneuverability in something this heavy was borderline witchcraft. Even more clever was the frame. Rather than a single rigid chassis, the TC-12 was effectively split down the middle, with the two halves joined by a massive pin and a roller and guide arrangement up front that let them oscillate against each other over rough ground. That kept all 4 tracks biting the dirt where a conventional machine would have lifted a corner. Early TC-12s put out around 388 horsepower, climbing toward 425 in later variants. And to appreciate how absurd that was, consider that Caterpillar's own D9, also launched in 1955, made just 287. Euclid, freshly bought by General Motors, had built something with nearly a third more grunt than anything the competition could field. But brilliance came at a price. The TC-12 was the most mechanically complicated crawler on the market. 2 engines, 2 transmissions, 2 of everything meant twice the things that could break, and repairs were expensive. It sold slowly, its huge weight and cost scaring off buyers, and it eventually morphed into the Euclid 8280 in 1966. Too clever, too complex, too soon, the TC-12 was a machine the market wasn't quite ready to feed. Number 2. Caterpillar D9G and the D9G Quad-Nine. Caterpillar's D9G arrived in 1961 and became arguably the most famous bulldozer ever made, a rugged, dependable workhorse that ran on job sites worldwide for over a decade. But the D9G's real too powerful story came from a customer who decided one wasn't enough. That customer was Buster Peterson, a West Coast dealer from the Peterson Tractor Company in California. In 1965, Peterson took a pair of D9Gs and coupled them end-to-end into a single one-operator machine so he could push-load the largest wheel tractor scrapers being built. The result was so effective that Caterpillar bought the design outright and put it into production in 1968 as the DD9G, DD for dual D9G, nicknamed the Quad-Nine. The numbers were staggering for the era. 2 D9G power units combined for 770 flywheel horsepower, all controlled by a single operator seated in the front tractor, running both machines through air-over-hydraulic controls and a special steering system. Where a normal push-loading setup needed a second machine to roll in and add its weight, the Quad-Nine delivered the full punch of 2 tractors from the instant the blade touched, a huge advantage in tough shale, hard-pan clay and frozen ground. Caterpillar didn't stop there. In 1969, it also released the SXS D9G, the side-by-side, which mounted 2 D9Gs next to each other, joined by ball and socket joints, shoving a single monstrous 24-foot wide U-blade. That blade width let it move volumes of dirt no single crawler could touch, and the 2 units could be split apart and used separately whenever needed. Here's the poetic part. Even the standard single D9 kept getting stronger. The 410 horsepower D9H that replaced the D9G in 1974 remains, to this day, the most powerful conventional track-type tractor Caterpillar has ever built. The Quad-Nine and its side-by-side sibling soldiered on until 1980, when a single revolutionary new machine finally made bolting 2 dozers together unnecessary. But for over a decade, the most powerful dozer Cat sold wasn't one machine, it was two, driven by one very busy operator, and it was all but unstoppable. Number 3. International Harvester TD25 and TD30 say big vintage bulldozer, and most people think Caterpillar. But through the 1960s, International Harvester built genuinely formidable crawlers, and the TD25 line, topped by the muscular TD30, put IH squarely in the heavyweight fight. The TD25 first rolled out in 1959, powered by International's brand new DT817, a turbocharged 4-valve per cylinder 6-cylinder diesel that was advanced for its day. It came out swinging at around 230 net horsepower, going toe-to-toe with Caterpillar's D8H and Allis-Chalmers HD41. Almost immediately, it earned a reputation as a really good tractor offered in both direct drive and power shift versions, and it sold in serious numbers. In 1962 came the improved TD25B, nudging power up toward 240 horsepower with refinements to the bodywork. A popular machine that moved a lot of iron. But International wasn't content sitting a class below the biggest dozers, so it pushed the platform harder still. That ambition produced the TD30, IH's true heavyweight of the mid-60s. The gear drive TD30 made around 280 horsepower, while the torque converter TD30 TC climbed to roughly 320, putting International in rare air for the period. This was a big, brawny crawler that could swing an 18-foot full-U dozer and haul serious rippers, and IH built its attachments in-house rather than farming them out. Operators pulled Caterpillar scrapers with them and swore by their toughness. By 1968, International consolidated the range. The new TD25C, at 285 horsepower, replaced both the gear drive TD30 and the torque converter TD30 TC. The TD25 family kept evolving. The 310 horsepower TD25E ran until 1983, but the story quietly wound down. In 1984, International Harvester sold its entire construction equipment operation to Dresser Industries, and one of the great American crawler names faded from the field. The TD30 belongs on this list precisely because history nearly forgot it. In an era dominated by yellow paint, International built dozers with the horsepower, the toughness, and the engineering to stand shoulder to shoulder with the giants. Machines arguably too good for a company that wouldn't survive long enough to get full credit for them. Number 4. Allis-Chalmers HD41. If the TC-12 was the twin-engine king, the Allis-Chalmers HD41 was the machine that redefined what a single-engine dozer could be, and it did it with a single brutal purpose in mind. Allis-Chalmers dropped a bombshell at the 1963 Chicago Road Show, unveiling a 70-ton crawler with 524 horsepower that instantly made headlines as the largest built up to that time. But it was only a preview. Allis-Chalmers wanted to be dead certain the machine could actually deliver a lower cost per cubic yard, so they followed that first tantalizing glimpse with a long development program, prototype after prototype, field-tested in every condition imaginable. Customers had to wait until 1970 before the HD41 finally reached full production. The heart of the beast was a Cummins VT1710C, a turbocharged V12 displacing 1,710 cubic inches, rated at 524 flywheel horsepower. Behind it sat a 3-speed power-shift transmission from Twin Disc, and despite tipping the scales at nearly 70 tons fully equipped with blade and ripper, the HD41 could still trundle along at 6.5 miles per hour. It could swing bulldozer blades up to 20 feet wide in semi-U and full-U forms. The concept was aimed squarely at surface mining, giant quarries, and land reclamation, jobs where one enormous tractor could dramatically boost output and, in some cases, eliminate the need to blast rock entirely. Allis-Chalmers even threw in a clever engineering touch. They moved the hydraulic and transmission oil coolers behind the operator's cab to cut the heat load piling up in the engine bay. The market responded. Roughly 1,900 HD41 units were built in the first 4 years alone, proof the world genuinely wanted a super dozer this big. Then came the twist. In 1974, Italy's Fiat bought a controlling stake in Allis-Chalmers, and the Fiat-Allis joint venture was born. The crawlers continued, the HD prefix was dropped, and the machine reappeared, still packing its 524 horsepower as the Fiat Allis-41B. Same monstrous heart, new badge, an American giant that lived on under an Italian flag, and the machine that first proved the Super Dozer was a real buildable idea. Number 5. Komatsu D455A. For decades, the biggest dozers were an American and European affair. Then, in the mid-1970s, a Japanese contender walked onto the field and swung harder than anyone, the Komatsu D455A. Komatsu spent over 5 years developing it, and the first problem was almost comical. The company didn't build an engine big enough to move a machine this size. But Komatsu had been partnered with America's Cummins since 1961, and Cummins had exactly the power plant, a turbocharged V12, the VTA 1710. Bolted into the D455A, it delivered around 620 flywheel horsepower, a figure Komatsu's engineers judged more than enough to shove this monster through anything. To handle all that torque, Komatsu engineered something unusual. A split-power drivetrain with 2 torque converters and 2 4-speed power-shift transmissions, spreading the load through a center clutch. Bare the machine weighed about 58.5 tons. Equipped with a full U-blade and ripper, it blew past 90 tons. That ripper deserves its own mention. Komatsu built what it called a giant ripper, and in its common single-shank form, the tip could be driven into rock with a velocity Komatsu compared to dynamite, making the D455A a devastatingly cost-effective tool for tearing apart ground that would otherwise need blasting. Crucially, the timing mattered. When the D455A appeared around 1976, it outmuscled the reigning giants, packing roughly 100 more horsepower than the 524 horsepower Fiat Allis-41B, and pressing hard against everything Caterpillar had. It was, in effect, the first modern superdozer, a single machine engineered from the ground up to do what previously took bolted-together contraptions. And the world bought it. D455, as shipped from Japan to the United States, Australia, Russia, Spain, Germany, anywhere there was hard rock and overburden to move. An updated D455A1 followed in the early 80s, pushing output higher still, before the machine was eventually replaced in 1986. The D455A matters because it marked a turning point. This was the moment Komatsu declared it would not just compete in the ultra-heavy class, it would lead it. Everything Komatsu did afterward, right up to the largest dozers ever put into production, traces straight back to this Cummins-powered Japanese giant. Number 6. Caterpillar D10. Some machines are powerful. A rare few change the fundamental shape of every machine that follows. The Caterpillar D10, born in 1977, is one of those. By the mid-70s, Caterpillar had a problem. Competitors were fielding dozers far bigger than Cat's biggest. The D9, the Fiat Allis-41B at 524 horsepower. The Komatsu D455A even larger. Cat needed a giant of its own, but instead of simply scaling up the old design, Caterpillar's engineers did something so radical that even their own people were skeptical. They moved the drive sprocket up off the ground into a triangular high-drive undercarriage for a company whose track layout had barely changed since 1925. This was heresy. As one of the engineers on the patent later put it, the D10 didn't look like any cat dozer that had come before. Nearly everything about it was different, except the engine. But the elevated sprocket separated the drivetrain from the shock and abuse of the ground, dramatically reducing wear on final drives, softening the ride for the operator, and letting the tracks flex to keep more shoe on the dirt for better traction. The payoff was enormous. Caterpillar built 10 pilot D10s in 1977, each weighing more than 190,000 pounds, and they delivered around 50% more productivity than the largest cat dozer of that era. Studies showed the cost to move a yard of material with a D10 rivaled that of much larger machines. Mining customers who had been begging for something that could rip harder rock and shove more overburden embraced it immediately. Here's the real measure of how far ahead the D10 was. The elevated sprocket high drive design it introduced. is still the signature of Caterpillar's dozer lineup today, scaled all the way down to medium machines like the modern D6. A layout invented for a 95-ton behemoth in 1977 became the template for an entire product line for the next half-century. The D10 was so powerful, so productive, and so forward-looking that it didn't just beat the competition. It made the old way of building dozers obsolete overnight. Few machines on any list earn the word revolutionary. The D10 does. Number 7. ACCO Super Bulldozer. Every list has one machine that defies belief. This is it, the ACCO Super Bulldozer, the largest and most powerful tracked bulldozer ever constructed, and a machine that tragically never did a single day's work. It was built in the early 1980s in Portogruaro, northern Italy, by a company owned by an ambitious entrepreneur named Umberto Eco. The commission was extraordinary. A customer needed to move colossal amounts of earth across vast desert areas, and that meant a dozer bigger than anything on the planet. So Eco built one, mostly from Caterpillar components, but with custom parts fabricated wherever off-the-shelf pieces simply didn't exist at this scale. The specifications are almost hard to comprehend. The AC2 weighs 183 tons. It stretches over 40 feet from the tip of its blade to the end of its rear ripper. The blade alone measures 23 feet wide and 9 feet tall, bigger than anything Caterpillar itself has ever produced, and the ripper towers around 10 feet high, driven by enormous hydraulic rams. And the power? Not one engine but two. A pair of Caterpillar 3408 V8 diesels, 675 horsepower each, mounted horizontally opposed and combining for a monumental 1,350 horsepower. To this day, no tracked dozer built before or since has matched it for sheer size and might. So why did the greatest dozer ever built never turn a track in anger? Geopolitics. The machine was destined for a large-scale land development program in Libya. But before it could be shipped, international trade sanctions came down on the country, and the ACCO was frozen in place, a legal impossibility to export. It never left Italy. The story only gets sadder. When Umberto Eco died in the mid-2000s without appointing successors, the company was shuttered and its yard slowly decayed into a dumping ground, the world's largest dozer and a 200-ton companion grader rusting among the scrap. It was finally rescued in 2012 by a collector who moved it to safety, where it survives on display. The ACCO Super Bulldozer is the ultimate too powerful for its time machine. Literally too big, too ambitious, and too tangled in world events to ever do the one thing it was born to do. Number 8. Caterpillar D11. If the D10 reinvented the bulldozer, the Caterpillar D11 perfected the formula and turned it into the beating heart of surface mines worldwide. Introduced in 1986 to replace the D10, the D11 took everything the elevated sprocket revolution had proven and pushed it into an even higher weight class. The early D11N launched with 770 horsepower, instantly making it the most powerful production dozer Caterpillar had ever offered. And it was built for one job above all others: sheer, relentless bulk earth moving. The D11 quickly became the machine large mining operations were designed around. It rips rock overburden that would otherwise need blasting. It push-loads scrapers. It shoves mountains of material across open pits, shift after shift in some of the harshest working environments on the planet. Where a conventional dozer would be swallowed whole by the scale of a modern mine, the D11 is the machine that makes the economics work, and it never stopped growing. Where the original made 770 horsepower, today's D11 has climbed to roughly 850 flywheel horsepower, about 936 gross, from a Cat C32 engine, hauling an operating weight around 248,500 pounds and swinging a blade that can move on the order of 57 cubic yards in a single pass. It stretches nearly 36 feet long and stands almost 15 feet to the top of its stack. It remains to this day Caterpillar's largest and most powerful bulldozer. What makes the D11 belong on a too powerful for their time list isn't a single dramatic leap, it's staying power. Caterpillar built a machine in 1986 so fundamentally right that decades and countless upgrades later, it's still the benchmark every mining dozer is measured against. It didn't need to be reinvented, it just needed to be fed more horsepower, and it kept devouring the toughest ground on Earth. The D11 is the machine that proved the ultra-class dozer wasn't a fad or a stunt. It was the future, and Caterpillar owned it. For any operation moving serious rock, the D11 wasn't merely powerful for its time. It quietly defined the standard for every era that followed. Number 9. Komatsu D475A. By the mid-1980s, Komatsu's pioneering D455A had done its job. It had established Japan as a builder of true superdozers. But the game was escalating fast, and Komatsu answered in 1986 with a machine engineered to leap ahead of what it replaced, the D475A, where the D455A made around 620 to 650 horsepower. The new D475A1 arrived swinging with 740. That jump instantly put it among the most powerful dozers on the planet and cemented its place as the second largest machine in the entire Komatsu lineup, outmuscled only by the monster still to come. It weighed roughly 108 tons in operating trim, stretched nearly 38 feet long, and stood over 15 feet tall. The D475A was purpose-built for the brutal world of surface mining, open-pit operations, and quarrying, ripping and shoving overburden on a scale that only a handful of machines could touch. And like the best heavy iron, it was designed to be rebuilt and to endure, evolving across decades of continuous improvement. That longevity is the D475A's real signature. This wasn't a machine that had its moment and vanished. It kept marching forward through version after version. The 860 horsepower D475A3, then the durability-focused D475A5, and on into modern Tier 4 machines pushing close to 900 horsepower with re-engineered mainframes built to last twice as long as before. Nearly 4 decades after its debut, the D475A is still in Komatsu's catalog, and it's recognized as one of the largest dozers available for rent anywhere in Asia. What makes it worthy of this list is its role as the bridge. The D475A connected the first generation of Japanese superdozers to the ultra-class monsters that followed. It proved Komatsu could not only match the West but sustain a heavyweight platform across generations, refining, strengthening, and outlasting rivals rather than chasing a single headline number. When it appeared in 1986, 740 horsepower in a production dozer was near the very top of what the world had ever seen. And by building a machine tough enough to still be working profitably decades later, Komatsu made the D475A one of the most quietly enduring giants in the history of earth-moving. Number 10. Komatsu D575A. We end where the entire century of escalation was heading, with the single largest production bulldozer the world has ever known, the Komatsu D575A, the machine they simply call the Super Dozer. Komatsu had teased the idea for years, showing a 1,000 horsepower prototype called the D555A at a trade show back in 1981. But the real thing took time. After field testing from 1989 to 1991, Komatsu began full production of the D575A2 in 1991, and nothing on Earth compared to it. Consider the numbers. The D575A is powered by a Komatsu SA12 V170E turbocharged V12 diesel, an engine of roughly 3,000 cubic inches, producing a colossal 1,150 horsepower. The dedicated SD Super Dozer version tips the scales at around 152 tons or 336,400 pounds. Its standard blade moves 90 cubic yards of material in a single pass, and with the optional Super Dozer blade, an almost unbelievable 125 cubic yards. That's the equivalent of shoving roughly 10 dump truck loads of earth every time it pushes forward. It's so enormous that when one has to be moved any real distance, it doesn't drive, it gets disassembled and hauled away in 6 to 8 separate tractor-trailer loads. But the D575A wasn't built to break records for the sake of it. Bigger dozers move more material per hour, which lowers the cost per yard, and this machine took that logic to its absolute extreme. When the first Super Dozer went to work at a West Virginia coal mine, it reportedly nearly doubled the site's output, lifting production from around 375 yards per operating hour to roughly 750. Field tests showed it could be up to twice as productive as a Caterpillar D11 in hard rock applications. Komatsu built the D575A series in Osaka, Japan, and sold it to surface mine operators in the United States, Australia, and Japan, right up until production ended in 2012. The D575A is the summit of everything this list has been climbing toward, from the twin-engine Euclid of the 1950s through Peterson's bolted-together quads, past the first Italian and Japanese super dozers, to a single Japanese machine so vast it can push its own weight in dirt. It wasn't just powerful for its time, it set a ceiling for the entire industry, one no production bulldozer has broken since. If you enjoyed this journey through the giants of the earth-moving world, let me know in the comments which one you'd most want to see fired up and put to work, and which one you think was truly too powerful for its time.